My name is Suzanne. I'm from Utah's Hogle Zoo, and I'm here today to talk to you about tarantulas. Tarantulas are maybe not everyone's favorite animal, but they are very fascinating. Tarantulas are New World spiders that belong to the family Theraphosidae, which means they have broad, bushy ends to their feet where their hair tips are and their little claws. So Theraphosid spiders are very heavy-bodied. They have two main body parts like any other spider. They have a cephalothorax, which is their head and their thorax are kind of all combined. It's where all their legs attach to their body. And then they have an abdomen where most of their internal organs are. If we want to look at a spider closer up, I have a shed here from a tarantula that we can kind of see some of the different body parts. So let me switch to my up-close camera and we'll check it out. Okay, so here we have a shed. Tarantulas are arachnids, which are invertebrates. They're arthropods, which means they have jointed legs, but it also means that they have these crunchy exoskeletons that keep their bodies safe. If they don't have any bones, they need something to help protect them and keep them from being just squishy like a jellyfish. But the exoskeleton can't grow. So what happens when the spider's ready to grow, which with a tarantula happens about once a year, it will wriggle out of its old exoskeleton. There's a new soft one underneath, and before the new one hardens, they puff up with air, they get as big as they can, and then that new exoskeleton will harden and keep their body safe. And then this is left behind. See, it's just empty. There's no one at home because it's crawled out already. So let's check it out. Up here in the front, point with a pencil, we have their pedipalp. Look like legs, but they're actually pedipalp. They've got 8 legs on each side of their body. Here, you might be able to see where the spider wriggled out the top of the cephalothorax. It came off like a little lid, and then it wriggled out the top. Back here is the abdomen, and then sticking out off the back of the abdomen are these two, let's get that out of the way, 2 spinnerets, and that's what they use to spin the silk. So you can see those are all the external features on the back of the tarantula. And if we turn it over, you might be able to see some fangs right up front. Let's see if the camera can focus on that. Not very well. It has 2 big fangs up front. Might be easier to see on this one that's in resin. See those fangs right there, dead center. Those fangs are used to inject poison. They're attached to what's called the chelicerae, which are some mouth parts. So you can see the spider was really well put together, very fuzzy. I believe this might have been a red rump or a red knee, lots of different kinds. And they're very hairy. So these are called urticating hairs, and they're very irritating, and they're barbed actually. And there's different kinds of hairs all over this tarantula's body. But when they're irritated or they're trying to defend themselves, they'll actually flick these hairs off, and the hairs will go get into the eyes or nose or skin of the animal that's bothering them, and they cause a lot of discomfort, and the tarantula in the meantime can get away. If we look at this piece that came off the back of the tarantula, let's see if we can focus on it. There we go. Up here in the front, you see those white dots? Those are actually little windows. That's where the eyes of the tarantula are. And you can see there's a cluster of them there. Tarantulas actually have 8 eyes. So it's got those 2 big ones in the center, 1 smaller one off to either side, and then 2 pairs of little ones behind the big ones, for a total of 8 eyes. And you'd think with 8 eyes, they could see really well, but they actually can't. They can detect movement, but that's about it. And they use their hairs on their body to more sense what's around them, just kind of like the whiskers on a cat. So that's the kind of basic anatomy of a tarantula. They are pretty big, as you can see, and they come in all different sizes. The biggest ones are the bird-eating tarantulas, which can get up to a 12-inch leg span, which is like dinner plate sized if you want to be quietly horrified or fascinated by that. Today I've brought 2 tarantulas for you to meet. I have one from Mexico and one that's actually native to Utah. So let's start with the Mexican red-kneed tarantula. Mexican red-kneed are a very cool tarantula. They're very beautiful and striking, but that means that they're very common in the pet trade, which has led to some problems with them in their native habitat, and their numbers have been declining a little bit. Let's see if we can get Maleficent on camera. Where are you? There she is. So this is a Mexican red-kneed tarantula. These ones get to about 5 inches. They are not terribly uncommon, but like I said, they're having some struggles with habitat loss and with pet trade. People collect them because they are such cool tarantulas. Let's see if we can move a little closer to her. So this is a female. The females are heavier bodied than the males. The males are a little more spindly looking, thinner bodies, smaller abdomens and cephalothoraxes, but their legs are just as long. You can see she's covered with these beautiful hairs. She's kind of got a black abdomen with lighter hairs on it. And then she's got reddish orange patches on all of her leg joints and a nice ring of orange around her cephalothorax. So they're a very beautiful spider. As far as spiders go, spiders are not my favorite, but they are very fascinating. Maleficent here can actually live up to 30 years. Females can live up to 30 years in the Mexican red knees, and males usually live about 10 to 12. Spiders that all hatch out of the same group will mature at different rates. Usually the males will become mature 2 or 3 years before the females, which ensures that they're not going to be breeding with any spiders that they hatched out with. So it helps keep inbreeding from happening, because as the spiderlings disperse, they're going to become mature at different times and they're unlikely to find each other again. So they'll mate with someone they're less related to. These Mexican red knees like to live in places with dry, sparse vegetation. They live in Mexico, Panama, and the southwestern United States, way down south. They're very pretty, but for my money, I'd much rather look at a Utah native species. Let's switch cameras again for a minute and look at who else I brought. First, we'll get a lid back on Maleficent. I don't know if any of you have ever run into a spider while hiking in Utah, but they do live here. In fact, it's a lake. Sometimes we get them wandering through the zoo, especially in the fall. Most tarantulas live in burrows for most of their life. They don't come out that often. They're an ambush predator, so they'll dig a burrow, usually at the base of a plant or a little pile of rocks. The burrow is usually not too much bigger than their body, and it'll be a few body lengths or leg lengths long. Down it'll have 2 chambers. One chamber is where they eat and molt, or eat, and one chamber is where they molt. And when they're done eating, all their leftovers they bundle up in silk and go stash in the corner, or they'll take outside of the burrow and dispose of elsewhere. So let's see if we can find our desert blonde tarantula, which is our Utah native species that we find here sometimes in Salt Lake City. And there she is. This is Flora. Female tarantulas are more common in the pet trade and in educational programs and things because they do live a lot longer and they're a little more bigger. They're more robust. The males may live only 10 to 12 years, where the females will live 20. And the males tend to die right after they mate. So they become sexually mature at 10 to 12 and they mate, and then a few months later they'll die. Even in captivity, when they have really good food and care and nothing wants to eat them, they still don't live very long after breeding. So you can see here on Flora, she's got very tan coloring, which is where she gets her name, desert blonde. The males look a little different. They have a black body with light colored legs. More spindly, like I said, not as heavyweight. You're far more likely to see a male than a female. The females stay in their burrows. They kind of sit right inside the entrance, wait for something tasty to walk by, and they'll pop out and grab it, and they inject it with their venom, drag it back inside, and have a meal. The males, on the other hand, will live in their burrows a lot of the time, but at some point they gotta go out and find a girl. And so you'll find the males wandering around looking for females, either right after a heavy rain or around here in September in the fall. You find a lot of them wandering around looking for a girl or just looking for a warm place to spend the winter. Unlike the Mexican red knees, which are basically active year-round, The desert blonde tarantulas live in places where it does get cold in the winter, and so they become dormant in the winter. They'll just spin kind of a silk doorway to their burrow, cover it with dirt or small rocks or something, kind of plug it up for the winter and just go dormant. They don't really hibernate, but they don't really do anything. They'll just live off their fat stores until it's warm enough to be active again. You can see here on Flora, she's got these lovely pale hairs all over her legs, but her abdomen is looking a little bit bare at the moment. These hairs don't grow like a mammal's hairs. They're just part of the exoskeleton. So if she's flicked them off or they've just rubbed off during normal behavior, she'll be bare until she molts again, and then she'll have a fresh new set of hairs covering her body. See her very big glycerae up front that her fangs would be attached to. Let's see if I can point to them right there. See a little knob behind those, that black dot, kind of where her eyes are situated. She's just holding still and hanging out outside of her burrow because she's used to people looking at her, since she's part of our education department here at the zoo. Well, thank you for joining me today to learn more about tarantulas. I hope you've learned a few more things about spiders that you may not know live in your neighborhood, or that you think are really great and you wanted to know more about. I hope you're enjoying Spider Fest, and make sure to join us someday up at the zoo. Thanks.